I got my mind on welterweight over here. In fact, over at Bad Guy Inc., we're just having a conversation. How would the hierarchy go all time at 170? How would you see it? So, right, obviously you got GSP on top. But where it turned into a debate is, would you put Leon in front of Usman? And that's a tough one. Now, if you're looking at the body of work, like I know people that do this. I hear it all the time in basketball. It used to be between Jordan and LeBron. And one had 4 rings and one had 6, and therefore the one with 6 beats the one that 4 and say, okay, well, you're having a different conversation. You're not having a greatest between the two of them conversation. You're having a greatest career conversation. At which point, we don't even need to discuss. We can just go, as you pointed out, and look at those rings. But not all championships are created the same. Not all eras are created the same. So, when you understand that Leon beat Kamaru Usman twice, you'd have a very strong argument to say, okay, it's Leon. But the strength of the schedule and when you caught a guy, where did you fight him in his career? Like, all of these things get called into question. Now, I want to tell you this. The most inspiring thing that I saw in 2023 was Kamaru Usman against Chimaev. That was the most inspiring thing I saw. And that fight happened so fast. The turnaround, it was 8 days. It happened so quickly in the snap of a fingers that story never had time to be told. And you got to understand what Kamaru was going up against, okay? Because Kamaru was not just going up against this unbeatable guy, right? Kamaru wasn't just being given an opportunity to go to the new home of the undefeated Chimaev on 8 days' notice in a weight class that he'd yet to fight at. It wasn't just that. What Kamaru was agreeing to in exchange for a chance at #1 contendership, what Kamaru was agreeing to was to risk his legacy. And the reason it becomes a risk to his legacy, and he never had to face this. He never had to face this because the media didn't have time to tell the story. But when you're the king, which Kamaru was, and you go and you take on a guy that was there at the same time. Now, I know that Chimaev wasn't there all the time, but he was there at the same time. And he was never given his chance. So when these two guys go and they figured out if Chimaev is to get his hand raised, there would be an argument questioning the validity of Usman holding that belt. I mean, that has been tested once before and never more glaringly than Evander Holyfield against Mike Tyson. Evander Holyfield was older than Mike Tyson. Like when Evander finally beat Mike and then beat him again, a lot of people go, well, yeah, but Mike was out of his prime. Evander was older. And Evander told anybody that would listen, I can beat him. They're keeping me away from him. He's not the world champion. He is not the best in the world, no matter how many times ESPN and SportsCenter and Don King want to tell you he is. I can beat him, and I could have beat him every day that he's held that belt. That was very compelling, in my opinion. And Evander started making arguments. He tried to make an Olympic team and didn't. I won an Olympic medal. Like, he started making these arguments. So then when they fought, it very much did call it into question. Of course it did. Was there ever a day that he should have been called world champion? Not only could he not beat everyone in the world, he wouldn't even fight everyone in the world. I'm just sharing for you, right? Like, history's been very good to Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, but it was a very meaningful piece to the story. And this was an environment that Kamaru put himself into at a weight class he hadn't competed in a continent of which was not his, against an opponent that nobody else in the tough guy business was tough enough to face. They had done mythical lines on Kamaru Usman versus Chimaev for years. DraftKings had put these up for years. And it was always Kamaru. It was 2-1 Kamaru. It was 2.5-1 at one point for Kamaru Usman. When that fight went off, it's the same two guys. It's the same two guys that DraftKings had taken mythical action on for years. When the fight went off, it was 2-1 Chimaev. What changed? That's the same two guys doing the same thing that you had a mythical line on for a meaningful period of time. What changed? And this was the risk that Kamaru was taking. And that was something very inspiring. I diatribed into that story. So don't forget our topic here. Who are you going to put in front of who, Leon or Kamaru? When you look at the body of the work in the career, if you're doing this the way people used to do Jordan versus LeBron, of course it's Kamaru. If you look at a head-to-head matchup and say, look, they settled this business, show some sportsmanship and give the nod to Leon, fair enough, but that's going to be met with, where was Kamaru in his career when Leon beat him? And when Kamaru comes out and he did what he did, had one judge say it was a draw, had the majority of you that I heard from thought that he beat Chimaev, thought that he should be the number one contender. All of a sudden you realize that Leon did beat the right one, didn't he? And if you want to be real fair and you want to give credit where it's due, Leon did beat a very dangerous Kamaru Usman, but that ranking is still going to be up for debate. And I don't know where I apologize, I don't know where Kamaru is going to return. I'm confident he'll be back, but I don't know where he's going to return. I personally want to see him at 185 pounds, but I like new. I like fresh. I thought he looked fantastic against Chimaev. So that'll be a conversation for another day. But the hierarchy and the lineage of 170 pounds is very up for debate.